Hello all, Dave here, and today I wanted to make a quick little guide on how I normally pack my running vest for my ultramarathons. I've done a few ultramarathons over the years and I've picked up some skills, definitely made some mistakes, and I'm hoping this video might help a few people. Okay, so before you even start to think about packing, firstly, the first thing I'll do is I'll double check the race kit list. Each race usually has a mandatory kit list which you have to take, and this is mainly for safety reasons. I know in America some races don't even have one, but over here in the UK and Europe there's usually quite stringent mandatory kit lists. So before you even start packing, just double check that you've got everything in the few weeks or months prior to your race. Just a quick scan of what I'll be taking. So this on the table is everything that I'll be packing into my running pack. And then I'll be doing a separate clip for everything I'm putting in my drop bag as well. Yeah, the vest I'll be using today is the Salomon Sense Pro 10. This is probably the most comfortable vest that I've had over the years, so I've stuck with it for a little while now. And I'll be showing you how I pack for a 100 miler, as that's the race that I do the most often. If you're doing a 50 or if you're going further, then obviously you'll pack a little bit differently, but the fundamentals should be the same. Okay, let's get started then. The first thing I'll do is I'll think about the priority of what you're likely to use in the race. What I'll do is I'll gather everything together which I think I won't need, and I'll put it in one of these dry bags. This is just an Exped dry bag. I think it's a 3 litre one. And basically what I'll do is I'll just pack everything down and I'll pop it in this dry bag, just because I most likely won't be needing it, but it's important to have it just in case I do. Okay, so in the dry bag, the first thing I'll put will be my waterproof running jacket. So this one is a Montane Minimus Stretch Ultra jacket, and I chose this jacket because it's got slightly stretchy fabric on the outside while still being extremely waterproof, and that's useful because if it really starts raining, then I can just pop this over my running vest and I don't need to take my vest off and put this underneath it, which I really hated doing with some of my other jackets. This one, because it's a little bit stretchy, it's a lot more comfortable as well. You're not feeling like you're always going to rip the jacket when you're making any sort of arm movements. So that's a good one to put in there. Okay, and this jacket also packs down really small. It zips up into one of the pockets and it literally zips up very small into something like this, which you can then just stuff in the bottom of your dry bag. Okay, so the second thing I'll put in my mandatory kit list dry bag is a hat. So some races don't require this, but a lot of the races which I do, so it's kind of like a hat or a buff which you need to take, but I never tend to wear one anyway. So I just normally put this in the bag, out of sight, and if I need it, it's there. Again, I've got a base layer here. Again, I get quite hot while running, so I don't tend to use this, but if I do pull out or get injured or something, then it'll keep me warm, and it packs down really small. Pack it into your dry bag. And then I've also got an emergency foil blanket. This is a requirement in most races. And again, don't tend to use this, so it's going in the redundancy bag. And then the last thing I'm going to put in there is my backup head torch. It's always good to have one in case your main head torch runs out of battery or breaks or something like that. And a lot of races require you to have a backup as well, or at least a spare battery or something like that. Okay, once everything is in there, just try and get it into the smallest footprint as possible, and then clip the bag up. Okay, so that's our first bag done, and as you can tell, it's quite compact. and this has a jacket in there, a base layer, hat, foil blanket and backup head torch, and it all fits in this very small bag. The second thing I tend to do is I've got another dry bag, and this is for the kit I'm more likely to use while doing my race. So I like to have two dry bags, one with kit that I'm not likely to use and one with kit that I'm probably going to access more often, and this I'll put towards the top of my running pack. Okay, so the first thing I'll probably put in my second dry pack is this water resistant running gilet. This one's just made by Gore. Don't think they make it anymore, but I prefer wearing this to waterproof running jackets because like I mentioned before, I tend to sweat quite a lot, and there's nothing worse than having that feeling of water pooling in your arms when you're running really hot. So this tends to keep most of the water out, but I don't get that feeling of sort of sweat dripping down my arms. So this is a good compromise for me. Unless it's absolutely tipping down, then I'll get my main waterproof jacket up. So again, this just folds down really small, really compact. You can scrunch it together and pop that in there. Okay, so second thing I'll put in there is I have just some zinc oxide tape. I use this to tape my feet up to try and prevent blisters. So nothing special really, you can get this from most pharmacies or Boots or something like that. I also have some anti-blister plasters. Again, you can get these from most supermarkets as well. And then I'll just pop them in this Ziploc bag so that it doesn't get lost. It's easy to find. And then pop it into my dry bag. Okay, so I mentioned before that I didn't really like wearing a base layer, even at night. So one of the ways I tend to try and regulate my temperature at night is by wearing these arm sleeves. So these are quite good because you can just put them on. They kind of act like a long sleeve shirt when you've got them on, and when you get warm you can pull them down. If you get a bit colder you can pull them back up. So they're pretty good, and I keep them in my running pack just in case I need them. And normally, unless I get really cold, I don't touch my base layer at all. I just use these instead, as my base layer is just for an emergency really. So I'll pop these in here. And then lastly, I've got my main head torch here. This is the one which I'm likely to use most often. In a lot of the races I do, I have to carry two head torches from the start, but if your race allows you to pick it up at the halfway point, then obviously do that. So I have this from the start in my dry bag, and then that's everything. So I will just do this up. Okay, now we've our two dry packs, one with the mandatory gear which I'm not likely to use, and then a second one with gear I'm more likely to use that I'll put at the top of my running pack. So I normally just put these in the main back pocket of my running pack, and an important thing to look out for is these clips. I normally try and have these facing outwards, so not against my back, because after many miles these clips start to sort of dig into my back and really irritate me. So it's really important to pack and orientate everything in your pack so it's the most comfortable for you, and so you don't have anything sort of sharp or solid sort of jabbing into your back, because nobody wants that. Okay, so let's just put these in. So as you can see here, orange pack at the bottom, blue pack at the top, and I've tried to spread this evenly so the load is spread quite evenly against your back and there's nothing jabbing you in the back that's going to irritate you over many miles on the trails. Okay, so once you have your dry bags packed into your running pack, what I normally do is, sorry, the cat is back again. Come on, get down please, I'm trying to film this video. Down you get. Okay, so once you have your dry bags packed into your running pack, what I normally do to pack the rest of it is I put the running vest on, And this is because when I fill up the pockets with the rest of my gear, I want to make sure that nothing is prodding me in the side and that everything is comfortable the way I'm packing it. Okay, so first of all, first thing I'll put in is 2 water bottles. So these will normally be filled up with water, or sometimes I quite like to take orange squash if I'm filled up with water. And a good tip when you're trying to put these in these pockets, because they can be a bit tricky even when they're full of water, is to just inflate them and then they'll go in a lot easier. And just shove these in like so. A lot of races will also have like a minimum amount of water which you have to take. It's normally like a litre, but some are 1.5 litres. But I normally take an extra spare bottle anyway, just because if the race is really hot and the checkpoints at the start aren't too close together, then I'll need that extra bottle. And it's also good to have a spare in case one of your bottles rupture or get a leak or the lid breaks or something. It's actually happened to me before. So I always like to carry a spare, and it's a good idea to do that. And normally I just fold this up and tuck this around the back out of sight, as I most likely won't be needing. Okay, so second thing is you'll most likely need a running cup with you for the race as well. A lot of ultra marathons these days ask you to take your own cup, and this one you can use for hot drinks as well. So I just take one with me, and if I want a hot drink I can have it up here and it won't melt the whole thing. And it also folds up quite nicely. And again, I try and put this in the back, as I usually won't be needing it as much, only at the aid stations. Again, when you're putting everything in, just make sure it's not digging into your side, as it might not annoy you now, but I can tell you 6 hours later it will be annoying you. Okay, so the next thing is food. I normally take a few gels with me, so I've got some here. I normally quite like these Huma gels because they're fruit based and they're not as sugary as some of the other gels. To mix things up, I sometimes like to take these Cliff shot blocks if I want to eat something solid, so sometimes I chew on those. Really like these Saurian bars as well, so these are like just little cake bars which I take with me. And then lastly, I usually take some active root with me, and this is kind of just like a ginger electrolyte powder which you put in your water, and it'll settle your stomach a little bit if you feel a bit nauseous. And it's been really good for me in some of my prior races, so I'll take that as well. And normally with these, I'll just pop them in these side pockets here. And I'll try and just evenly distribute them out so that one side doesn't have too much, otherwise they become quite hard to get to. And it's quite important to have food easily accessible, otherwise after a few hours you start to get a bit lazy, and then if it becomes too much effort to eat, then yeah, that becomes a problem. Okay, so another thing I like to take with me, I mainly use this in the second half of the race when my legs are really getting sore, but this is just some deep heat, and it's basically just a sort of a muscle relaxation cream, and it helps with some pain relief when your muscles are really sore. So normally, again, I just stick this in the back pocket, as I won't usually be needing it that much. Okay, so this is probably one of the most important products which I'll take with me, and that is some anti-chafe cream or balm, whatever you call it. And this is very important because, yeah, nobody wants chafing on the trails. And if you're out there for many hours, then you can do yourself a lot of damage. And then with this one, I normally put it somewhere quite easily accessible, so I normally try and pop it in this upper zip pocket on my running vest here. So it's quite easy to get to. Oh, I forgot to mention electrolytes. So what I normally do is I get a Ziploc bag like this, and then I pour some of these Salt Stick fast chews in there. And like I mentioned before, I sweat quite a lot, so these are very important to me. I put them somewhere very easily accessible so that I can get to them pretty easily, and I can get into a routine of taking a couple every hour and a half or so. So I usually put these in this zip pocket here. And then I've also got some wet wipes or tissues, just in case you want to clean your face or go to the toilet, which is very important. I normally put these up here with the anti-chafing cream. And then I normally take an empty bag with me as well. That's just for any rubbish which I might have. You don't want to be littering on the trails. And you also don't want to be putting empty gel packets straight into your vest, because it just makes it really sticky and awful later in the race. So I try to be neat and tidy and just put them in the Ziploc bag and then empty it when I get to an aid station. And I'll just put that again in the side pocket, easy to access if I need it. And then I've got one of these Expert bags, and this is a waterproof kind of zippable folder, and I'll put all my valuables in here, as well as a rechargeable battery pack, which I'd use for my phone or watch if I need it. And it folds up quite nicely, and then I normally put it in one of my front pockets. And then lastly, a lot of races require you to take a phone in. I just put that in one of my front pockets, just in case I need it. It's also good if you want to take pictures out there while you're on the trail. Okay, so that is my pack mostly done. So as you can see, it's compacted down quite nicely compared to everything laid out on the table. However, there's one thing which I still might take, and that is these running poles. So these poles I wouldn't always take, but if the race is quite hilly, then I'll take them with me. And I'll put them in this Salomon sling, which I can attach to my backpack like so. And I'll just pop these in here. And this is the best sort of fastening method which I found so far. You don't have to fiddle around with any straps on your pack or trying to reach behind you and undo straps to get your poles out. Okay, so that's everything for my running pack. Next, I'm gonna tell you what I usually put in my drop bag. Okay, so now we've packed our main running pack, I'm gonna show you how I normally pack my drop bags. So for my drop bags, I usually just use like a drawstring sports bag like this. A lot of races will limit how big your drop bag can be, so I tend to just try and pack it into something small like this so that I have no issues. Okay, so let's look at the first thing I normally put in my drop bag, and that is normally a spare pair of shoes. So sometimes I like to change my shoes at the halfway point, especially if I'm having feet issues or I'm getting blisters, something like that. It can be a nice little change to get into a fresh pair of shoes. One thing I would look out for though is I would make sure I look out for the drop on the shoes. So I wouldn't go from like a 9mm drop shoe down to like a 0 drop shoe, because that's going to cause you a lot of issues that far into your race. And also it's good to have a shoe that's like maybe half a size up or a size up than you normally are. Wide toe box as well, just so that if at that point your feet are swelling quite a bit, you're not going to have any again issues with your feet rubbing or hurting that badly. So I'd normally just keep these in there, and if I want to change, then I'll change. I'll make that decision on the day, but it's good to have that there just as a backup. So I will pop that in my drop bag right at the bottom. I'll also have a spare t-shirt, so I'll have a fresh t-shirt to put on. Because after you've been running for about 10 hours, depending how fast you are, you normally appreciate a fresh t-shirt going into the night. So I'll pop that in there. I'll have more electrolytes, more of the salt stick chews. I'll also take these salt stick electrolyte tablets which have caffeine in them, because most likely at 50 miles you're probably going into the night time soon, so it's good to have some caffeine tablets on you as well. And this does both electrolytes and caffeine in one go, so very efficient. I'll have more of this anti-chafe balm, so I think this is just some Body Glide which I'll reapply at the halfway point. I'll have more of the deep heat, again just some spare if I need it for my muscles. I'll usually take with me like a little first aid kit with some basic plasters in there and antiseptic wipes. If it's a race in the summer or it's quite sunny outside, I'll also take some suntan lotion. This is just some Ultra Sun sports specific sun lotion, and I'll reapply that if it's quite hot and sunny at the halfway point. More anti-blister plasters. Some wet wipes just to give my face a bit of a wipe. I'll restock on the Soreen bars, just to have some food going into the night. I normally try and get most of my food from the aid stations, but I normally like to carry just a bit extra just in case. And then lastly, I'll take more of this zinc oxide tape with me, just so I can patch up my feet at the halfway point. And if I need to take any more with me onwards to the finish line, then I will. Okay, so that's everything packed now. We've got our running vest packed, and then we've got our drop bag as well, all ready to go. I hope that's helped a few people, and if you have any questions, just please let me know, comment below, and I'll try and get back to you.